Hello, everybody. Welcome back to ADHD Doers. Today we've got a very lovely guest who is a wizard of life, and we're going to learn all her secrets today. She's called Hayley Honeyman. She's on Instagram and TikTok and all these other places. We're going to learn her secrets of life today. This is ADHD Explorers. We're just a bunch of people who have ADHD trying to work out secrets of life all together. So let's learn some secrets of life. Let's go. So, hey, Hayley. Welcome.
Hello.
Welcome.
Yeah, no pressure with that intro.
I know, I'm sorry. Do forgive me. If you can't see, she has amazing cat ear headphones and I'm in love with them. And I wish I had them on myself. One day. I'm going to get some ears.
I feel like I'm missing out not having the colorful background. You guys have the best background.
Yeah, get on it. I have so many questions I'd love to ask, but because I watch all your reels and you're so funny and you seem like someone who has accepted what their mind does, and you're just kind of open and honest about it, and I love that, and that's kind of what we love to do here. But I just want to know, like, how do you do it all? How do you do so many like things? Like, do you have a process, or like how do you plan ahead?
Yeah. I get asked this question all the time. I get people asking me this all the time that are just like, how the heck do you do so many things all the time? And I think for me, like, one of my longest term hyperfixations has been the fact that I love the process around content creation, and like, it doesn't feel hard. And like, if I have a video idea or I want to film something, I'll film it right away, edit it, post it. I don't work on a content schedule. I do not do content calendars. Those don't work for my brain. And so I just film, edit, post when I feel like it, and that's worked. And
Wow.
and then all of the other things I do, I try to have really good like systems and routines behind them to ensure that they actually happen. So that's helpful too.
Wow. Because that's what I find. And I have an idea, and then it takes time. And the longer I wait, the more emotional resistance I grow. But to just smash through it, like while you're juiced up. Because I know, with us, we need to be juiced up about an idea to like have it come to fruition. So you just say, ride that wave.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of my biggest pieces of advice is for people is like, follow the dopamine. When it shows up and it arrives for you, like when I get jazzed about something, I'm not going to write it down and do it later because I won't be as excited about it later. I go, my brain works best right now, so I'm going to do it right now. And it's proven to work. And that's not how like our society's built out. But if you rebuild your life to suit you, it functions. It works a lot better.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's probably why so many of us are like entrepreneurs and like doing our own thing, because then we can just follow that.
Yeah,
it's not under a specific schedule.
No, it's so true.
Do any of you guys have anything around sleep?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I've been trying to I've learned that I have this like sleep thing where I don't ever want to sleep. I always want to stay up, and sleep is a kind of hard, scary thing for me. And I just wanted to like ask if you guys did too. Like, I don't know, I find it really hard to fall asleep on command.
What do they call that? It's like bedtime resistance, basically. Like, as ADHDers, we have this. It's kind of a form of oppositional defiance, where we're like, yeah,
totally,
not gonna do it.
I hear that with so many of my like coaching clients that I work with. It's such a big problem for most people, and a lot of the times what I hear from people is that like the resistance there is because they don't feel like they've gotten enough out of their evening, and so they're like, I have to stay awake to make this time like worthwhile, or like I need to have more fun or do more things. So I actually have no problems around sleep. It has been like the one thing for quite a few years that has been really good. I go to bed at 10:30 every single night. Like, I am very structured around my sleep, but I think it's because my evenings now are so like, here are the great ways I'm gonna get dopamine, and then by the time I'm in bed, I'm reading a book and I'm tired and I go to sleep.
So you kind of plan out your evening. It sounds like also, yeah, your autism is winning there maybe over the ADHD.
That is such a good point. Like, that conversation between autism and ADHD there is so relevant in terms of like the sleep, because my ADHD hates structure. My autism absolutely needs it. And so like my night routine is very structured, but I structure it in a way to ensure that like I've gotten all of my dopamine needs before I start winding down. So I don't feel resistant to then starting going to bed.
So how do you
sense.
get, you mean like you, through the evening, get your dopamine, you said? So you like line stuff up?
Yeah.
To get your dopamine?
I do. Yeah. I've essentially, I'm running a program in September around how to get dopamine in productive ways. And one of the big things that we're going to be talking about is how to create a dopamine menu for yourself of ways to get productive dopamine into your life that like suits you and fulfills you. Because I used to be the person that I would sit on the couch after smoking a little bit and then just doom scroll and like watch TV all night. And I'd be like, great, I feel fulfilled and this is great. But after reflecting, there was so much more resistance to like doing a night routine or like going to bed because I wasn't actually fulfilling my needs. And so now I have like a menu of items that I can do in the evening to make me feel as though I'm getting adequate dopamine and like making the most out of my evening.
That's freaking dope.
Yeah, I've heard that term before, like the dopa menu.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because that's exactly it.
So
Yeah, cool. I was actually going to ask like about it. That was one of my questions, is that reprogramming essentially that your dopamine, where you're getting it from, and then saying like these are places that are appropriate or like actually give me what I need and fulfill me.
Yeah, totally. It's a hard process. Mm-hmm.
Can you give us an example of like what's on your menu? It's not too personal.
Yeah, totally. Let me walk you through my evening yesterday. I do like training sessions with a trainer, which is really helpful. So like physical activity of some sort is such a good way of getting dopamine. And so I did that. And then I've reconnected with cooking and baking as a way for me to like feel fulfilled in a lot of ways. I used to just try to make like the easiest food possible so that I could just lie down and do nothing. But I actually realized like cooking and baking gives me so much joy, and I feel like I'm giving myself a reward by making myself food. So that's a really good option. And then lots of reading, doing music of sorts. Like I love to write music. I love to sing. I love to just learning how to play the guitar now. And so got a lot of dopamine from doing those things last night. And like I hyperfixated on those items until it was time for bed. And like that was it. That was my whole evening. It was great.
So I've had this theory that with you can get almost like, there's two ways to look at it when you have ADHD. It's like sometimes we get little drops of dopamine from like these doom scrolling things, or we can almost get high in the same way off ticking off our to-do list. And
task completion. Oh,
what do you call it?
Totally. Task completion. It's a huge dopamine input. Huge. I actually added that as one of my like morning routine things because I would doom scroll first thing in the morning, like immediately. And instead I made some like shifts around my morning. And one of the things I do is I try to every morning either empty my dishwasher or scoop my cat litter box. And I get huge dopamine from that because I'm like, oh, look at me being a productive person and like I'm adulting. And that feels so good. And it just starts your day like so well.
Yeah, this concept
I personally don't think I could start with cat litter, but
yeah, fair. Very fair.
Called mini wins. And like it's like as soon as you get like a mini win in the morning, it's like you are on fire. The difference of the first 5 minutes of having a doom scroll or versus a mini win, just it could be anything. But I feel like I've only just started to learn about it the past month, and that's been like really game changing. Because in the first 5 minutes, suddenly I'm like, oh, I am a productive person. Oh, look at me.
Yeah.
I love that.
Feels good.
I really want to talk to you about
AuDHD. Kind of force you into that a little bit, because I wanted to ask you about this, like how you feel about being a pet owner as a neurodivergent person. But yeah, because like I have to take my dog out in the morning, right? And so that's something I'm doing. That's giving me like physical exercise. And then also it's like checking off something that I need to do with my day. So yeah, how do you find like being a pet owner impacts your life?
Yeah. I think before I even knew I was autistic, owning pets was a really great way for me to learn how to build routine because I had routine around them. And now, like with my dog, I very much, I always say like it's time for our walk because I need it too. She needs it. The brain needs it. Like this is not just for my dog. I need this. And so, yeah, I walk my dog every single morning and it is great for him. He needs it, but like it's so productive for me. So I think the routine that having pets creates is really, really helpful for me. Though it is a massive responsibility. I always hear people saying like, should I get a dog or like a cat to like give me routine and stuff? And I'm like, you have to really think about it. Like this is not just a quick and easy way to get routine. But no, for me, it's worked really well to have something to take care of other than myself.
Yeah. How do you find the cons of it, I guess, you know, like getting frustrated maybe with your pets or like that side of it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I am such a spontaneous person. And that's the ADHD impulses of like just being like, I want to go do this massive thing right now. And then being like, well, I have 2 cats at home and I have a dog. And I'm like, I can't just leave. That is one of the most challenging parts about having animals. And it requires a lot more pre-planning, but it also saves me a lot of money because I go, I want to go get like an Airbnb or go to a hotel tonight or whatever. And I'm like, well, I can't do that. So let's sit and actually plan something out. And my autism is like, yes, this is great. We're planning and this feels amazing. And my ADHD is just like, come on, let's do it. But it's a balancing act. And I think it's actually helpful overall.
Yeah. I took my cat camping 2 weekends ago because we didn't plan ahead. And I was like, you're coming with us. And she loved it, actually. She was a van cat for like 3 months. So
I love that. That's so cool.
Took your cat camping.
So Ben,
What, she just chilled in a
yeah, she lived in a van. No, she like we tie her up to like a 20-foot laundry line, and then she just stays on her harness, chases bugs. She got so dirty, but she like dug a hole and pooped in it, and then covered it up. And I was like, "Girl, you got this."
Oh
Wow.
I don't have to clean it up.
She's like teaching us how to be self-loving. You know, I'm gonna
Exactly. She's like,
Stuff.
and teaching us how to like be in nature.
it's amazing.
just dig a hole.
Go cat.
So I wanted to ask, like, I don't know, like, what the frig is helping you recently that you've like maybe picked up recently? Because like, I don't know, we're always growing, I feel like, when you have ADHD or AuDHD. And like, I learned I had ASD really young and really like, and I was like 14 or something. Like they're like your autistic spectrum, and I was like, cool. And then I only figured out that most of my symptoms are coming out of like, ADHD, and that, like emotional dysregulation for me was a mega symptom. But like the interplay of both is something I've not really reflected on much. Or not really like, but you seem like you really know what you're talking about because you're like, oh, my ASD does this, my ADHD does this. Like, how is it for you, like living with these two wild beasts inside? One who loves to be organized and who loves to be spontaneous.
Oh my God. It's a great question. I think like I only figured out, like I got my ADHD diagnosis when I was 22 and I got my ASD recommendation. I am technically self-diagnosed with the support of like my doctor and psychiatrist around being autistic, but I didn't get that until I was 23. I'm 25 now. So like I haven't had that much time to learn and understand myself, but at the same time, I like deeply hyper-focused on it and started just dissecting my brain as much as possible. And I think that the biggest things that have helped me is understanding how my ADHD shows up on its own, which for me is like, I didn't really realize how hyperactive I was, not just internally, but physically. And so when my body is given enough outlets to be intensely hyperactive externally, my brain becomes quieter and my autism can kind of like take over in productive areas. And so, committing to have, like for me, I've been very privileged and lucky enough to have a personal trainer that's been able to like work with me and like get all of my energy out possible, which is great. And I feel as though on a day-to-day level now, I feel less hyperactive because I've got such a great outlet. So I think understanding like the most key barriers that I live with makes it really easy for me then to manage all of the like small things, the little ways that it shows up.
So it's like you're a dog.
Yeah,
it's like
I am on that club.
It is. It is like we're all dogs. It's so true.
It's like we have to walk ourselves and take ourselves for runs. Yeah. Like, I like that.
It's so true.
I don't know. Like, I haven't taken...
Yes.
I took myself for a bike ride yesterday so that I could take my dog for a bike ride because she's, like a shepherd mix, hyperactive type dog. Like, she is me as a dog.
Yeah, my dog is the same. It's so great. Like, anytime I need a break from doing work, I go to my backyard and like chuck a ball around with him or like play soccer with him. I'm like, oh, this is great. You need this. I need this. This is great.
So it's like you are, I don't know, it's like helps you ground yourself again. And it's like social in a way because you're like, hey, buddy, let's go on a little freaking trot. I don't know. You know what I mean? I love that. It's like, I feel like what you're trying to say to me is that because you have that time where you can like run around and let that energy out, it's almost like you feel more steady through the rest of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I even find that like yesterday I had training, but today I feel a lot better. Like I feel the effects of the work I do on myself yesterday. And I think that really matters to me. And one of my favorite things that I remind myself is like, is this doing a kindness to future Hayley? Is something I say to myself all the time. And so on the days where I'm like, I don't want to go training, I'm tired already. So I'm like, is that a kindness to future Hayley? Because tomorrow you're going to feel so much better. You're going to feel more relaxed. You're going to feel more grounded. It's going to be, the brain fog is going to be lifted. It's going to be easier to like focus on things. So that's how I kind of like talk myself into doing those things for myself.
Like a gift.
Such a good way. It's like you might have DOMs and like be sore and groaning like an old man like I am today.
Yeah.
But mentally, it feels so much better. And I think like what I'm hearing is essentially you're saying sometimes the ADHD is like louder or more present. And then when you're able to tone it down through like exercise and stuff, then you can manage the autism better.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's like, for me, the autism was so easy to be missed because I'm charismatic and I'm an extrovert. And those are two things that you don't normally see in like the average autistic person, as people will say. And so it's very easy to miss, but when my energy feels more like regulated and doesn't feel so intense, I'm able to recognize the ways that like my autism shows up. And I'm like, okay, I need to do some like, as you mentioned, like with the emotional regulation type stuff, that's a huge way that my autism shows up that I have to manage, but I find it way harder to manage my emotions if my brain is moving so fast or my body wants to be moving so fast. So being able to like manage my energy and then go, okay, what are the things that are like showing up emotionally right now that need to be dealt with? Or, what things are causing me stress because I haven't managed it well enough right now.
And then I guess by
it's really interesting.
Things, you have control over them then. I feel like sometimes what we need to do, like most of our problems come from like overwhelm. And then when we just like plop them out onto a piece of paper, it's like, oh, okay.
Yes. Oh my God. All of my pieces of paper, all of my things.
No.
That's how I exist, is just, what is in here? Bam, onto paper. Like, it's the only way that I function with things. So, yeah.
Yeah. We did a whole episode on journaling, and it was basically explaining like that process of like, get it out of here where it's all tangled up and onto something. Yeah.
So do you have a system for like, after the piece of paper is written? Like, do you attach it to your wall or do you read it ever again?
It's a great question. I've made a video on this before. I actually have quite an intense system around how I get my brain thoughts out and like deal with them. The process is I brain dump, put it all down, and then I use the Eisenhower matrix, which helps with prioritization.
Yeah.
Which is like the 4 quadrants of, urgent, not urgent, important, not important. Yeah. And I take my brain dump and I plot them into the places I think they need to exist. I attach due dates to all of those things. And then based on what's there, I'm able to create what is today's game plan then? And I put that down. And so like the things you see in front of me are now like, okay, today's to-do list is here based on my priorities. And now I can actually function and move forward.
Wow. I think I've been suffering from the
Do you have that like
planning ever kind of situation.
Yeah.
And I sat at my desk today and I actually carved out time for the first time ever. I was very proud of myself. I was like, I planned to do things today.
Hell yeah.
And that felt great. But then I didn't make a plan. And the whole day was like, oh, I don't know how to do anything. What? So I like that. Yeah, action plan. You know what you're doing. Game plan, that's what you call it.
Yeah.
Because I think even a to-do list, that word just sounds like too much effort to me. But a game plan.
Right.
I like that there.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, do you find on days where you don't like plan that you don't know what to do with yourself? You're like, I have time.
I get the least done on days where I assume that I can do it without planning. So I've made it a regimented routine now that I start work every single day at 9 a.m. regardless of if I have a call or not. And I sit down and it's the first thing I do every single time I sit at my desk, because otherwise I will just like fluffle about and like not really know how to direct my energy. So it's very, very important. Yeah, fluffle about. Tasty treat and disorganized word.
So I have a fun fact and statistics
we have a
for you
few
guys.
questions. Oh yeah, go for it, Ben.
Sorry, Addy. I just wanted to share this. It is that up to 50% of ADHDers have ASD, and up to 86% of ASDers have ADHD. That is according to the latest studies.
So
the overlap is so big.
Conversations. Yeah, there's a lot of conversations beginning to happen amongst medical professionals as to whether ADHD and ASD are actually on the same spectrum or not. And
yeah, I think in the UK they're
yeah, and so that's an interesting one to keep our eyes on, because it's like, well, kind of makes sense, but like that's not.
And some people are very like, I guess, where they fall more into the like stereotypical autistic, or their autism is more present if they are the same thing, that they don't like to be associated with ADHD, or maybe vice versa, just because of like stigmas. And it's like, well, why do you have those stigmas? And why are you scared to like then take on that label? Because like Ben's always saying I'm also autistic, and like my partner is also always saying that. Like I'm at the point where I'm like, most likely, yeah, but my ADHD is just like way more present. And it's like, yeah, why would that be a bad thing?
Yeah, totally. It is very interesting. Like I've now, one of my closest friends is also ADHD and autistic, but we present completely opposite in terms of the fact that she's much more, she comes forward and comes across as a little bit less like intense as I do, energy wise. She comes across a lot more reserved, and she is a autistic like fronting person. I am very obviously an ADHD fronting person, but there are still so many overlaps that we have, and it's so interesting to discuss that with her, where I'm like, I know we struggle with the same things, but no one would ever tell, because we're so different in how like people would visually see us presenting those challenges.
Yeah, well, they say like if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person, right? And same with ADHD.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we're all so unique, and the spectrum is that circle, like they say, not like the line. So
yeah,
it makes sense.
So, Addy, what were the questions that the community wanted to ask Hayley?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So
We asked everyone what they wanted to know.
this one I think is interesting. One of your videos the other day was about unmasking. And so someone was like, how do you even start to unmask?
Oh,
You have been masking your entire life.
yeah. Okay. These are these questions are my favorite right now because I'm actually in the process of writing a TEDx talk on unmasking. And I'm so excited. It's going to be the biggest TEDx talk in all of Canada ever. And so I'm very excited to be a part of it. And my entire presentation is on unmasking. And yeah, in the process of writing about it, oh my God, I've learned not only so much, but I've also had to do a lot of reflection on my unmasking journey because I'm fully unmasked 24/7. I do not mask anymore. And there was a space in time where I was 24/7 masking, even in front of my son. And so what I like to tell people is that the first step has to be identification. It has to be the process of understanding and knowing when is it showing up and where is it showing up. You don't necessarily have to do anything about it other than saying, am I being true to myself right now? Or am I doing this to preserve somebody's perception of me? And just recognizing that is a step towards moving in an unmasked version of yourself. Because I think the analogy I have given before is if you walk around life saying there's only silver cars, that's the only way that the world exists. There's silver cars everywhere. You're only ever going to notice the silver cars. And when you notice those silver cars, it's going to reconfirm in your head that that's the truth. But if one day you ask the question, maybe other cars exist, you'll start to open yourself up to the possibility of seeing other vehicles and other colors and being able to say like, oh, maybe these are things that exist. Like you don't necessarily have to know which car is your favorite and which one you identify with the best, but you're starting to like open yourself up to the opportunities that come with that. And it's the same with unmasking around when you can start to identify in yourself and ask yourself questions like, was I really being myself around that person, or was I mirroring that? Or was I, trying to be the person they want me to be? Then it's like, okay, cool. Good to know I was doing that. Let's start just that.
Yeah, that's great. Like, I think I've been very lucky in that I had an accepting family that was like, you're a weirdo and we love it. And I feel like maybe I was not conditioned to mask quite as much.
Yeah.
When I'm in like corporate situations and stuff, definitely I'm still like, let's put on the suit and like,
yeah, totally.
But I found that just in the last few years since I've discovered my ADHD, got diagnosed, I'm like, oh, I can like stim in public and do these things that maybe I hadn't urged to do before, that I was like, I don't know if I can do that.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
It's like brave at first, but then like so damn liberating. It's like, I feel like I lived my whole life masking, like you were saying, Hayley. I feel like, and I realized it like pretty recently. And so now I'm like, wow, like, how do I live my life authentically without just living how people want me to be? And I think we all go through this process on a journey of managing ADHD, but how do we do that? I'd love to. Yeah, you guys worked it out yet? I don't know.
One of my suggestions around unmasking is that the process or the idea of unmasking around other people, terrifying at first, but the process of unmasking around yourself also requires tons of bravery and vulnerability. And so I usually suggest to people is that, I identify like, is there a space and time in your day-to-day life where you are 100% alone without distractions right now to be with yourself? Most people on average will say no, especially with ADHD. We are constantly living with distractions. We've got music in the background, a video in the background, but we're scrolling also, or we're doing an activity, we're doing this, we're doing that. It's so easy to ignore our needs or our truest self when we're constantly living in a state of distraction. And so I always suggest to people building what I call a solitude routine, where you are setting a space and container and time aside to be alone, like be with yourself and allow those like truest versions of yourself to start to pop up. I did this around like cooking. Anytime I cooked, I started to do no music, no videos, no nothing. And I would just cook my food. And as I was doing it, I would talk out loud to myself. I would start singing. And like after a couple of weeks of doing it, like I was so comfortable with it. And I was having full conversations and I had these great creative ideas and I was like dancing and I was singing. And I was like, oh my God, this is me. This is me here. How cool is that? And I got to identify all those pieces of me that were hidden for so long.
That's beautiful. I think another place that I found it is like, for example, Ben, when we met, like 10 years ago, and then we had our moments by ourselves when we weren't around other people and we could just be these like beautiful weirdos. And I was like, I've never met anyone else who like, we gel so well. And it's because we were both like undiagnosed at the time. And it's like finding those people and finding a space where you can be together and just be like, let's just dance and feel.
Yeah. Totally. I love that. Finding your people is so important. Yeah.
I mean, we attract each other. But...
It's like in the silence we can finally hear our thoughts again. If we live in our life.
Exactly. Because your brain, and your brain wants to fill the silence, right? And so if you give it the space and time to fill it, it'll fill it the way it naturally wants to fill it.
And I love how that's where the good ideas come from, too. It's almost like...
some of my best ideas.
Okay, I'm going to do that.
Someone else has asked, does she have any tips for starting out as a content creator?
Whoa. Okay. The problem is, and I am very transparent about this with everybody, I got so fucking lucky. And I think that's important. Did I work really hard? Yeah. But I also got really, really lucky. And I think a lot of content creators, can also, say that with themselves as well. I had one video that popped off that got, I think it's at like 3 or 4 million views. And it was one of my first videos to ever do well. One of my first videos about ADHD. And when that video did really well, I was like, okay, I'm going to now commit to doing this as much as possible. And I started posting 3 times a day on like every platform I could. And because that video had done so well, all of the other ones started doing well too. And so it's a combination of luck and a combination of I was so excited and so passionate and like wanted to share my story. And so I think for people that are wanting to get into content creation, it's important that you're not just everybody else. It's important that you are showing up as you, because people can see the masks. They have learned to understand and know when someone is not being their truest self. The videos of mine that do the best and get the best feedback are when I look like a rat, or I'm crying, or I'm being vulnerable and just like the truest of myself. Those are the videos that do the best now. And so I think I just suggest to people like figuring out how to show up as you in a way that is interesting or different than how everybody else is doing it.
It's like you're unmasking in public and it's social media. Yes. And that's what I feel like you always have.
For me, yeah. That was my unmasking journey 100%. Was my process of becoming a content creator, which is like so weird that that's how that happened. But that is how I did my unmasking. And now I live unmasked, which is like crazy and amazing. And I'm very lucky.
Yeah. And it sounds like also you were able to like recognize that point, like, oh, this is blowing up, and take advantage of it and say like, this is doing well. So I'm going to then lean fully into this and make a lot of content, and that push the journey further.
Definitely. And at the time, like there weren't many female creators making content about ADHD. There was, I think at the time, like Katiesaurus was the big female ADHD content creator. Yeah. And we had How to ADHD, Jessica, making content. She's, the OG. She's amazing. But for short form stuff, for short form stuff, there wasn't a ton of female creators. So I think I just got really lucky of like getting into the niche before it became so oversized.
Time, right place.
Yeah, exactly. It was a lot of luck.
Mm-hmm. So I see that you are, you make these videos spontaneously all the time, but I think some of the most important questions to ask are like, do you still suffer with like self-doubt and things like this, or days when you're just so out of juice, how do you juice up again? Or how do you love yourself back into the good state, a helpful state?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and this has been trialed and errored. This took a lot of time. But I think the biggest thing that I do now is I stop placing expectations on myself that don't serve me. And so in terms of like content creation, I used to be like, I have to post every day and it has to be good. And now I'm like, fuck that. Like, there are days I don't want to post. There are days I do not want to get in front of the camera. There are days that I just don't feel inspired. So I'm not going to show up, because if I did make a video on a day like that, it wouldn't be authentic. It wouldn't be real. It would be me as a mask. It wouldn't be truly what I need or what's best for me. And so, yeah, it's a lot about just like knowing what I need when I need it and listening, and not trying to force myself to do something that's not going to suit me.
Wow, follow the dopamine.
That's the hard part, is like figuring out your own needs. Ugh.
I know, hard.
I love that. So what, have you got some other questions, Addie?
Another question. Yeah, someone has, did you have any challenges or hesitation learning to drive? I am 26-year-old AuDHD and nervous about focus.
Oh, yeah. Actually, one of the worst ways that my ADHD shows up is getting bored driving. And I used to, before I had my diagnosis, and I hate that this is something I did, but I'm now fully aware of it, is I used to go on my phone while I was driving. And it's a horrible thing that I used to do. But it was because I was just like bored and I needed stimulation. And I know that now. And so I was really scared to drive too. Just because like anxiety, but I now kind of just lean into like, well, what can I do in the car that is more interesting? I can belt out my favorite songs. Great. I'll make a playlist for that. I can listen to my favorite podcasts. Great. I'll download those. I can have a fidget toy that's one-handed so I can drive with one hand. Great. I'll do that. All of these things are going to better serve me than being on my phone. And now my phone also has the driving detection on it. And so anytime I drive, it stops functioning. Doesn't send me notifications, doesn't pop up. It just like turns off.
Yeah. They just implemented that like a couple of years ago, right? And it's like, it like takes over your whole screen, essentially.
Yeah. It's so helpful because I don't even think about it. It just does it by itself. And so it's like, great. I just put that aside and don't have to worry about like a notification coming up and being like, oh, I need to see that right now. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask you about, like, I know you're also in the Vancouver area, right? Like learning to drive here is, I know a lot of people don't for a long time because there's great transit. And so then I feel like then I find people learning to drive maybe at an older age. Like I'm from New Zealand. We learn to drive at 15 just because we have to. You can't get around if you don't. And so maybe then there's also that extra like level of, oh, well, I'm learning to drive at an older age where I already have these ingrained habits.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Figuring out how to break them.
Yep. It's harder to rewire at an older age for sure.
So you've got this course coming up that you're running about doom scrolling, right? And what did you call it? Like healthier ways to get your dopamine.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely going to join, but I feel like this is relevant for a lot of the ADHD community. Like we stay up doom scrolling, and that has been my like habit routine for like years and years. And it's kind of ruined my life, ruined my social life, because I'm not going to become nocturnal eventually. Like, how have you, like, gone from a point where you're maybe a doom scroller to a point where you are teaching a course on it? Like, what have you implemented in your life?
I think the biggest thing that I've done for myself that allows me to be able to be good with some of these things is that I create space for active processing in my life. Meaning that like the reason we tend to create and build bad habits and stick to them is because we never question them. And what active processing is a space and time that gives you the ability to sit down and go, what's not serving me? What could I be doing better? what's fulfilling me, what's not fulfilling me, and then making plans around that. People actively process through therapy, through coaching, like through programs like the one I'm running in September, or you can do it by yourself, which is what I do. I will always have my journal on me because I fill these up every couple of months because that's my active processing space. And so for me, like around doom scrolling, in one of my sessions, I was writing to myself and I was like, I feel like shit every time I stop doom scrolling. Never, ever does it make me feel good. And I went, okay, this needs to change. And it was like, can I do preventative planning now to ensure that I have workarounds for this instead of just going, I hate this and I wish it would change, and not doing anything about it. And so it was then creating like preventative plans that can go in place. Like, do I need to plug my phone into the bathroom rather than in bed? Do I make my bed a no phone zone? Like, how do I make this the most productive thing possible, and have adjustments and replacements for, whatever need I'm trying to fulfill is there. So I think, having an active processing space is what has given me the ability to be so conscious of like what is harming me or what is helping me.
So
I had to do the Adamina, you are a child, and like put a timer on my Instagram. So after an hour of use per day, I can't touch that app anymore.
Yeah.
Like I can go in and change the timer, and sometimes I do that, but like.
Yeah, totally.
So it's like this preventative, what do you call it? Preventative mechanisms?
Preventative planning.
Planning. Okay, because like I know that Peter Shankman, he's a ADHD he had a gambling problem, and he had to cancel anything that was in Vegas, for example, because he knows that because we're impulsive, right? We just want to do the thing when we're visually triggered or whatever. And so you're saying like, put those things in place as a gift to yourself so that you don't like get triggered, like put your phone in your bathroom. I love how like you are true and honest with observing yourself. And I think that is almost a key skill in the management of ADHD. We love to avoid what the problem is. Well, I know I do. Yeah. So be honest and be like, oh, I should change this. I should do something about it. It's a very smart idea, and I'm going to change my life with that. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think too, like, a lot of the times there are so many ADHDers that want to change things and feel like they can't, or that it's hard to. And I think what tends to happen is a lot of ADHDers and autistic adults especially, we're so good at becoming comfortable in discomfort. We're in a very uncomfortable space for whatever reason, and we go, well, this is how it is. This is how I exist, and this is how I live, and like, just gonna move forward and continue with it, instead of questioning and making the like, well, what if it were different? And how can I get there? Like, that tends to be a block for a lot of us.
Well, I honestly think that level of discomfort sometimes is a form of dopamine on its own, right? It's like how we sometimes trigger arguments with our partner, or like do things that we know aren't a good idea because brain juice.
Yeah, totally. Conflict resolution. Oh, great dopamine. Feels good. Such a toxic way to get dopamine, but damn, does it feel good? Yeah, no, totally.
Emotional.
Yeah.
Things.
So bouncing off the like idea of doom scrolling, I'm curious, both of you, what is something that you have gone into a rabbit over this last week?
Ben, you go first.
Well, I think that I've gone into a rabbit hole of just feeling weird. Like I've done a lot of like, I've had a therapist recently, and I've brought up all of these new fresh feelings, and I have to digest them, and I haven't had like the time to like process them. You said that like this time of solitude, and I like the way you put that. I've been so busy with people, and I feel like I've like hyper focused on like boundaries and like being like, how do I carve this time out to create that solitude and space? How do I define my day? How do I time block? And I've been reflecting on boundaries in action. I'm like, listen, matey, you gotta go. Or listen, my love, you gotta go too, just for a bit, and let me focus on these feels. because I think a lot for me with emotional processing, I just had to like, I don't know, I didn't give it the time and space that it needed, you know. And I feel like we do need that time to feel the feels, you know, live the feels, cry, you know, yell into a pillow, all of the above, you know, to really, I don't know, I think that there's a deep part of us that needs that. So I was rabbit holing on boundaries and cathartic emotional release. It's good.
Really nice. What a great rabbit hole to go down.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure I've done others. Like I've been doom scrolling on the nightly. Don't get me wrong. Like I can't believe that people come to me for advice on ADHD sometimes. So I am not a good example. Just listen to Hayley, not me. Okay. Good.
Yeah. So Hayley, what's your weekly rabbit scroll?
Rabbit scroll.
Rabbit
Yep.
scroll.
Scrolling rabbits. Wow. This week for me, I've been working towards having this program that starts tomorrow, and it's all around dopamine and it's all around doom scrolling. And I have been spending this week just doing so much research on dopamine specifically, and like, yeah, and understanding it better, and not only just like the science behind it, but how like, pardon my language, how fucked up social media has changed our understanding around dopamine and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like I went into this massive research thing where I was looking at this whole like dopamine detox thing that like went crazy on social media. You can find tons of videos on it everywhere. But did you know there is zero scientific backing behind it? Zero. And
So the idea of like
interesting.
completely cutting out social media maybe is not
So
completely beneficial.
yeah, the dopamine detox is this idea of like, well, if you take out every way that you get dopamine in your day, every way, take all of them out, your dopamine supplies should naturally replenish themselves. That's the idea behind the detox. But for ADHDers, we are dopamine deficient. And so those supplies won't replenish and you'll just feel like shit.
It's like, oh, okay, maybe I'll do that. And do I have to up my meds to like 100 milligrams a day to
Exactly.
match the deficit?
You can ask, I would guess, any person that has tried a dopamine detox and been like, cool, like, is your dopamine levels fine now? And they're gonna be like, well, no, of course not, because that's not how it functions. That's not how it works. So, yeah, I've been going very deep into that, learning and taking information from it and like building out based on some of the theories that are more scientifically proven for my program this month. So that's where my focus has been. It's been great fun.
Cool.
That's also a great one.
Yeah.
What have you been?
Look at us. Yours are both
Yay.
a lot more productive than mine. I mean, various different things. But like last night, as I was going to bed, I was putting my earplugs in because I need to sleep with them. And then it was like, I wonder how long we've had in-ear headphones. Because I don't remember having them like when I was younger. Like maybe I got them in like my teenage years. So like the noughties. And then I looked into it. 1871 was the first in-ear headphone. And it was invented because they had like telephone headphones, which was basically like a weird headphone that would rest on your shoulder and you had to like lean your ear against it. And so this guy invented some that look similar to these, but are probably like a lot chunkier, and they pop into your ear so that telephone people in the 1800s could use them.
So
I
interesting.
I appreciate him. I like headphones.
Yeah.
Yes, very much. Love my ears.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Matt.
Love it. Yeah.
71. So your program starts tomorrow. I'm definitely going to join because I feel like it'll be good for me. Even though there's a part of me that's like, don't do it, Ben. I love this habit. It does so much for me. I'm going to do it anyway to be like, take this. You person that's resistant to change.
Hell yeah. I'm excited to have you. It'll be good.
And well, is there anything else that you'd like to share with the crew that listen to this?
Well, I'm going to be working on, in September as well, a nice long form video all about like ending doom scrolling as well. And that's going to be coming out on YouTube at the end of the month, which I'm super excited about. So yeah, just checking me out on all my socials. I'm trying to be as active as possible on them. The main one being Instagram. Oh, I love Instagram. You will find out my stories being just the weirdest person. So check me out there. Yeah.
Yes. Hayley.Honeyman.
So that's Hayley.Honeyman.
Hayley.Honeyman on Instagram and Hayley Honeyman everywhere else.
And I feel like it's nice to have an icon of the unmasked, free-spirited ADHDer, you know, to look up to be like, okay, we can be this free. So thank you for being that person all for us.
Oh, isn't that not the best compliment you could possibly receive? Like, that's the nicest thing ever. Like, oh wow, your truest self? That's crazy. Oh, thank you.
Thank you
No,
so
I
much.
so appreciate it.
And,
Yeah, for being you.
appreciate it so much. Well, thanks for giving us.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on.
I'm going to listen to this again because there's been so many juicy chunks that I need to reflect on and think about my life and be like, oh, am I having time alone? Am I doing an action plan for my negative habits? Okay. I've got a lot to work on. So, but I really appreciate you coming on and just being yourself and sharing. So I look forward to joining and seeing what else comes out of you.
For sure.
And to our listeners, yeah, thanks for everyone listening. We love you guys. Go check out Hayley on all the platforms. Don't forget to give us a follow. We just started our own Instagram, ADHD Explorers. Rate on all the places, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can leave a review. We love those. And thanks, guys.
Yeah, lots of love. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.